Hello, this is zebracode.io, and we are on lesson 9, and we're learning about various random functions. And so I'm going to go ahead and create a demo.py file, and we're using our browser-based integrated development environment at Python Anywhere. And I have two tabs open. One is where I'll edit the file. Now, the first thing we're going to do is look at some of the methods that are available. It's choice, select, and shuffle. And actually, select is wrong. We'll actually be using sample, as we'll soon see. So it's choice, sample, and shuffle. And the first thing I must do is import random. And let's go ahead and do the first one, choice. And I'm going to create a list, and I'm going to have three options here. It's going to be rock, paper, scissors, and I'm going to call that, it's going to be assigned to a variable called capital L. And then I'm going to use a variable, I'm going to call it SEL for select, and it's going to equal random.choice, and we're going to choose from a list. In this case, it's going to be the list L that we just defined. To make it a little bit clearer, let's call this variable selection. So selection will equal random.choice L, and then we can print selection. So what choice does is it takes a list as a input parameter, and then it returns one value within that list. So in order to navigate between our two tabs here, we're going to open up a bash console, and then we're going to execute this code. And once we get our bash console, we can cd into HW, CD into less than 7, and here's where our code is that we just created. We used Python 3 demo.py, and it gives us one choice. It's scissors. Let's run it again. This time we get paper. Let's run it again. We get paper again, and finally we get rock. So this is choosing between the three options, rock, paper, and scissors, and selecting one, and that's what the choice function gives us. So just to make it a little bit more interesting, let's add a iteration here for x in range 10. So it's going to do this 10 times, and we'll indent this to put all of this within the same code block. Now we're going to do the exact same thing, and we are going to just choose it 10 times. Let's go ahead and run that, and here we have 10 entries, paper, 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 rock, scissors, etc. We can clear this, run it one more time, and here's our 10 choices here when we ran 10 randomly, choosing rock, paper, or scissors each time, and this is a selection we got. So that's how you use choice. And the next one we're going to learn about is sample, but of course I've gotten it wrong. I've used select, and let's just go ahead and run that code and see what we get. So I'm going to create a list, and this time it's going to be a list of numbers between 1 and 10, including the endpoints 1 and 10. So we have our options here, and we're going to do a variable called selection. Selection is assigned the value of random.select. And of course, I want to, this select takes two parameters. It's going to be L, which is the list, and then N is the number of items that we want to select from that list. So let's go ahead and print selection and run this code, see what we get. And when we run this code, we can clear the screen and run it, and we're going to get an error, and the error says that the module object has no attribute select, and that's because there is no select. It should be called sample. So let's make that correction and make sure we always get the names right of the methods. Otherwise, we're going to get that type of error. So let's correct the method name. Instead of select, it should be sample. And again, the two inputs is the list itself and the number of items that we're sampling. So we can save this and run the code. And this time we get 3 items that are randomly selected, 1, 7, and 3. And then it's 6, 1, and 4. And then 2, 8, and 7. So each time it's randomly selecting 3 items from this list of 10 that we start off. We can change the sample size to 7. And again, we can do the exact same code. And now with this one change, instead of getting 3 items, we will get 7 items. So let's clear this, run the code again, and we get 7 randomly selected items from the list of 10. So what happens if the number of items selected is bigger than the number of items? What if we try to select 11 items from a sample size of 10? And in this case, we will get an error, and it says that the sample is larger than the population, which makes sense, and that error is pretty clear of what's happening. So we cannot have a selection that is greater than the population size itself, or else that will cause an error. So next, let's go to the final method that we want to look at, and it's shuffle. So let's go ahead and delete all of this code here. And what's different about shuffle is that it shuffles in place. So let's go ahead and first build a function that we looked at previously. It's build deck, and it starts with an empty deck. We have nested loops for C and for S. Those are all the cards, the 13 cards, and the 4 suits. We have a deck. We append each of the strings, and we return the deck. And the deck is going to be basically a list of strings with 52 items. And A is going to represent ace, and S is going to represent spades, for example. So we can now take D, and that's a variable, and it's assign the value of build deck, which is going to return all of the 52 items as in a list of string, and then we can now do random.shuffle. Now notice there's no equal sign here in line 13. It's just random.shuffle. It's acting on the D itself. The D is the variable which contains the list of items. And then so we're going to have two things here. First, we're going to print the list unshuffled, and then we're going to print it shuffled. So we'll see basically the list twice. And once we execute the code, here on top we have it in order. Notice all the aces are first, and then the kings and the queens. And then on the second, on the bottom part, everything is mixed up. We've got the jack of hearts first, the 3 of diamonds, the king of diamonds, the 4 of spades, 4 of clubs. So it's all shuffled on the bottom, and that's what we expected. First we built the deck in order, and then we shuffle it. So let's do one other thing here. Let's go back and build this deck as we did before, but this case, let's just do a random sampling from this deck. So we're not going to shuffle it, so I'm going to create a variable called random cards. It's going to be random.sample, and then within this, we're going to have two parameters. We're going to pass the D, which is the list of items. That's the population, and then we're going to randomly select 2 cards, and let's go ahead and print out random cards. So random cards is going to be a list. In this case, the list is going to have 2 items. Those are the 2 items that are randomly selected from the deck of cards that we built. So let's go ahead and clear this and execute this latest code, and we get 2 randomly selected cards, a jack of diamonds, a 7 of hearts. Let's do it again. Now we got 3 of hearts and a 7 of diamonds. And let's do it one more time. We've got ace of clubs and 8 of spades. So just with some small snippets of code, we can really start to build some very interesting games. We can random dice, we can random cards, and we can random all kinds of things to make very interesting games. This is zebracode.io. We're on lesson 9, and we're learning about random functions.